Well, hello everyone. This is Gregory Zelfand, and let's get started with how to manage projects in SharePoint webinar. So before we get started, just a couple of very brief announcements. So first of all, I will be doing a lot of demos today, and those demos will be based on SharePoint Online. However, if you have older versions of SharePoint, or if you have SharePoint installed on premises, most of the functionality I will be covering today will be available in your environment as well. And of course, for those situations where it's not, I'll try to call it out. Also, I do have a slide deck that I would like to share with you, and you can actually download. You see the slide deck on the screen right now, but you can actually download it at any point during the next hour. To do that, just go on the Handouts section of your control panel, and there should be a PDF file in there, and just hit download, and it's yours to keep. The slide deck contains a few best practices, some tips and tricks, screenshots, as well as URLs to some of my blog posts with some instructions that to functionalities that we'll be covering today. Also, because we have a kind of a full session, everyone is on mute. However, I do want to make sure that I answer all of your questions, so really would like to keep it informal. So if you have a question, just type it into the chat window, and I will be more than happy to answer your question as we proceed. We will try to have a dedicated 10-minute or so session at the end for Q&A, so hopefully I'll be able to answer all of your questions. Lastly, if you have maybe some specific question unique to your environment or project or something, just send me an email, and I will provide my contact information at the very end. All right, let me officially kind of introduce myself for those of you who have not attended my previous webinars or training sessions. My name is Gregory Zelfand. I'm an independent SharePoint consultant. Have been using SharePoint for more than 10 years. I'm a big advocate of application. I blog a lot about it. I have my own blog site where I blog about best practices, instructions, tips and tricks. And what I do for a living, I help organizations pretty much migrate to SharePoint and Office 365. And one unique thing about me and how I differentiate myself from competition, I only utilize out-of-the-box functionality when I configure sites and SharePoint environments for my clients. So I never really utilize any coding, custom coding, or third-party tools to achieve that. And as I mentioned, I own my own consulting company, SharePointMaven.com, and I help organizations migrate to SharePoint. I consult on best practices, and I do lots and lots of training. All right, so here's the agenda for today. We'll first review kind of the available options for project management. What are the different ways you can manage projects in SharePoint and Office 365? Then, of course, I'll spend, this is where we'll spend majority of time today. These are the three options we're going to cover today: Office 365 groups, document sets, and project sites. And as I stated already, we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. All right, let's just start off with kind of the overview of all the available options to manage projects in SharePoint and Office 365 these days. So this slide kind of shows you the summary. And the four options that we have are Office 365 groups, document sets, project sites, and project web app or project online or project server. There are different names for that. That's kind of the fourth option. Now, the boxes in blue, this is what we're going to cover today. So we're only going to focus on Office 365 groups, document sets, and project sites today. The project web app and projects online is kind of a separate tool or separate application kind of altogether for very kind of unique cases where you need to manage not just projects but more of a portfolio, typically for large organizations. Now, with that being said, I do have a separate webinar on that, and I will mention it in the next slide, because definitely this by itself needs a separate webinar. There is no way we can cover project online, in today's session. So we'll focus on those three options for the moment. And in the slide deck, I do offer some screenshots, some URLs to some of my blogs, and I also specify the different conditions, the different scenarios that will help you make a decision when you should use each of these options. All right, as I mentioned, so if you project online is not something we're going to cover today. However, I do have a webinar that a separate webinar that I will be delivered in August. This is a totally new webinar. So if you're interested in learning more in project and portfolio management using Project Online, just follow the URL in the slide deck. Hit the register button, or you can go to my website and register. And there are still a few spaces left for August webinar. All right, so let's kind of focus on the other three options. But before we dive into them, before you really make a decision which one, before you start using, I should say, Office 365 groups or team sites, you really need to first ask yourself and your colleagues, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Because answering all of those questions that you see on the slide will help you determine which option is better suited for you. For example, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to maybe to achieve consistency with your documentation? Are you maybe trying to just consolidate various information sources? Maybe you have managing your projects using Dropbox and OneDrive, and and files are spread over on email and personal laptops, and you're trying to consolidate into one source. Are you trying maybe to establish or enforce, I should say, an existing project management methodology if you are maybe a PMO within a large organization? Or maybe you're an executive who is trying to get kind of the overall view of your projects and portfolios, once again, part of PMO. Or maybe all you're trying to achieve is just kind of an informal meeting space. Maybe you don't need any of that. Maybe all you need is just kind of an informal meeting space with your colleagues to collaborate on documentation and emails. So make sure before you really, start using team sites or Project Web App or Office 365 groups, make sure to answer those questions first. Another thing you need to keep in mind is, well, a few things you need to keep in mind is, what is the project management discipline or maturity within your organization? So, for example, if you don't really have a PMO established in your organization, if you really don't have an established methodology, jumping straight to, let's say, Project Online, maybe is not a wise decision. At the end of the day, whatever tool, whatever method you use, at the end of the day, it's just a tool. It's not going to replace your methodology, project management methodology. So something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is the SharePoint maturity within your organization. If you are just switching to SharePoint and maybe you have been using file shares or other products, once again, it's a very different scenario, if you have been using SharePoint for a while. So you really need to be sensitive to your audience. You really need to understand the maturity of SharePoint within your organization, and this will help you make a decision whether you should use one method over the other. You should also know your audience. For example, if you are maybe managing projects and sharing documents externally, maybe you should take it easy on metadata and all the bells and whistles on your team side, because, look, while you have power to train your internal users, if I'm an external user and I don't know what metadata is and you shared your team site with me, well, I'm in trouble. And last but not least is user adoption and training, and I have a whole separate webinar about user adoption. But at the end of the day, no matter whether you are going with something easy as Office 365 groups or something as complicated as Project Online, at the end of the day, it's all about user adoption and training. If you just hand your users the tool and you do not train them on how to use Office 365 groups, Project Web App, Project Team Sites, whatever it is, your project will fail. So make sure to build in the proper training and change management techniques into your implementation. All right, so let's now, so this was kind of the decision factor. So let's now focus on the particular I guess, methods on managing projects. And the first one is Office 365 groups. Now I will now switch online. I will not really come back to the slide deck anymore. But just to let you know, once you download the slide deck, so for each of the methods, I have a slide that explains kind of the scenarios when this particular method is more appropriate. So hopefully this will definitely, feel free to reference the slide deck after today's webinar, and hopefully it will help you make right decisions on whether this particular method is appropriate for you or not. All right, so let's start off with Office 365 groups. And Office 365 groups is something that became available as an option quite recently. I believe it became available last year. And for those of you who have been using team sites, you probably know that if you are trying to set up a project team site, it's quite a project by itself. You need to configure the site. You need to know how to do that, or ask your IT department to set it up, add all the appropriate web parts, create navigation, security, etc., configure document libraries. So there is a lot of, long story short, there is a lot of overhead with the team sites. And what if we just wanted to manage a quick project? What if all we don't need all the bells and whistles of a typical team site? What if all we need is just kind of a quick way to collaborate? So Office 365 Groups is a new kind of available option. It's almost like it's a counterbalance to the team site. So let me first show you how what it is all about, and then we'll talk about some specific aspects of Office 365 Groups as related to project management. So to access, so obviously Office 365 groups are only available for those of you who are using Office 365 online subscription. So for those of you who have SharePoint installed on premises, this is not an option that is available to you. So I am online, I'm in the cloud, and there are two ways to kind of quickly access Office 365 groups. You can either access it through your mail, or you can access it through your OneDrive. Doesn't really matter. So let's go to mail. All right, and I have, so this is probably quite familiar to you. This is your Outlook email online, and this thing on the left, this existence, I already created some existing Office 365 groups. So let me first create one for you, and then I'll go into the specifics of this particular tool. So to create a group is actually pretty straightforward. Once again, for those of you who have created team sites before, you know what the drill is. It's quite a bit of steps, and you have to configure all of this and stuff. None of this with Office 365 groups. So to create one, you just hit this plus button. And by the way, so it really depends how your admin has set it up. By default, anyone within the organization can create an Office 365 group. So that's definitely a plus. So let me hit the plus button. And I have this brief pop-up menu on the right, and I have to specify what the name of the group is. And let's just do whatever, doesn't really matter. So Windows Upgrade, the ID is created automatically. You can add a description to the group. And then for privacy, there are two options available, public and private. Now, public means that anyone within your organization will be able to discover this group, and anyone will be able to access content with this group, whether they are files or conversations, etc. Private means that while everyone will be able to discover your group, only the members of the group can really access the content within this group. So these are the two pretty much very basic, straightforward to understand security principles. And once again, I'm referencing the team sites. With team sites, you can do all sorts of permissions and read only and contribute and full control, and kind of unique permission. You can set up unique permission for about everything on a team site. None of this here. This is as complicated as it goes as far as the setup. So let's keep it public, and I hit create, and it usually takes a few seconds to create a group, and then on the next screen you can add your additional members pretty much on the fly, and that's it. So once again, the process of creating the the group was much quicker. It literally took me a few seconds to do that, and I'm pretty much done. Now, what you end up is kind of this environment. Let me show you my existing project that I have already, an existing group that I kind of customized a little bit. And it's pretty much the same. I mean, all I did was just cleaned up some existing, conversations. But what you see is what you get. Once again, there is not much you can configure. I mean, the thing you can configure is you can change the logo. As you can see, this is the project to do a company barbecue, and I did an appropriate logo for that. But that's pretty much it. What you see is what you get. And it's kind of funny. So this webinar, I have been delivering this webinar for several times already. And I think this is the last time that I'm going to be delivering this webinar in this particular format, because Microsoft has recently announced that they're going to merge Office 365 groups with team sites. I'm not sure about the exact dates or the rollout yet, but at the end of the day, Office 365 groups and SharePoint team sites will be married. They will become one happy couple. So I'll definitely need to adjust, my webinar when that happens. And you will essentially get the flexibility and the easiness of Office 365 groups, and you will get the flexibility to customize the team sites kind of all in one package. So until that happens, what you see is what you get kind of with Office 365 groups. So you know how on a team site you can manage tasks, you can manage all these different web parts and contact lists and custom lists and all that. None of this here. What you get here is the conversation, which is essentially your email, and you can start off new conversations pretty much with a click of a button. You get the calendar, which is kind of the team calendar, and you can overlay it with your personal calendar. You get the files, which is essentially, if I click on files, hopefully this will look familiar to you. It looks like your OneDrive, except these are the files that belong to this particular group. So you get the same kind of looking user interface with files and folders, and it looks exactly like OneDrive, but these are the files that belong to this particular group. And you get a notebook. Okay, so this is a kind of a notebook you can use. A team site right now also gets a notebook as well, but you can definitely utilize the notebook in Office 365 as well to keep track of your notes, project notes, or meetings, minutes, whatever it is. And connectors, there are different connectors available. You can actually kind of connect Office 365 groups to other applications. Let's not get there, just stay in focus of the topic we're covering. But this is pretty much it. This is what you see is what you get. And the beauty is that you can, once you become part of the group, you can subscribe yourself to that group. So that means all the conversations will be part of that particular group, and will stay on this particular group forever. So, well, unless I, of course, delete them. So, for example, I'm starting a conversation right now, and you can, by the way, start a conversation from either Office 365 group, or you can start a conversation from your inbox. So you can say, what do you think of, for example, I'm starting a conversation to my team members, what do you think about the budget? And I can attach files right from from the files that belong to Office 365 groups. And what will happen is, once I send an email, everyone will kind of get an email if they're part of as you can see, I just got an email because I'm subscribed to this group, and I can reply to this right from my inbox, et cetera, et cetera. So once again, there is not much to it. You get the conversation, you get the calendar, you get the files, you get the notebook. Let's talk about project management, why you would use this particular method, why is it so attractive. First of all, as you can see, it's very easy to set up. If you don't need all the bells and whistles of your team sites and task lists and all the portfolio management, if you just have maybe a quick project, definitely Office 365 groups is the way to go. Another beautiful component, another amazing component from project management standpoint is this conversation module. So every time you start a new conversation, it keeps a log of all the conversations in your Office 365 group. So from project standpoint, think about this. Sometimes a project can go on for months and months, and people come and go. And sometimes I could be a project manager, or I could be a team member, maybe joining the project 3 months in. Yes, I can maybe access all the files that are part of the project, but it's completely invaluable, the fact when you can access all the different conversations that have occurred before I joined the project. If I can not only go through the files, but also check out all the different interactions and email communications, all the conversations that have occurred prior to me joining, that's absolutely invaluable. This will give me a history of what has happened to the project, how decisions have been made, etc., etc. All right, so once again, what you see is what you get for the moment. As I said, I think in future, you will definitely see this Office 365 groups kind of married together with the team side, so we'll have to wait and see how this looks. But I think once this happens, this really will be an invaluable tool, because you will get the power of the team side where you can customize it any way you like with metadata and stuff, plus you will get this social media aspect of Office 365 groups as well. All right. Okay, I got a few questions. So there was a question about Microsoft Planner. That's another product, Isaac. I'm not sure. I have not personally used it. I mean, I've read about it, but once it's available, once it goes live, I will be happy to do a webinar on that topic. So a question: where do this Office 365 groups reside? Well, architecturally, they actually reside. Let me click on. Architecturally, for every group you create, so let me go to my files, for example. So you see, for every group you create, there is a new Office 365 group. There is a new site collection that is created. So once again, I wouldn't get worried on the kind of where the stuff resides, because it's kind of irrelevant to the end users. But just to let you know, architecturally, there is a new site collection created for every group, Office 365 group you create. And the beauty of Office 365 group, it gives you this familiar look and feel of the OneDrive, plus the email, the conversation, the social media aspect of it. So definitely utilize Office 365 groups. I recommend that you start using them, because it's kind of towards the end of the year, it's going to be inevitable. And definitely get used to it, but yeah, I think it's a perfect solution for those quick projects, for the projects where you just need to collaborate together with the team, and you don't need all the bells and whistles of a typical team site. All right, so let's proceed. Let's leave Office 365 groups for the moment. Let's proceed with the second option, and the second option is document sets. So we're inching towards kind of the team sites. But before we do that, the team sites obviously give you the flexibility to manage your documents and metadata and risk registers and task lists and contacts and calendars. Now, what if all you need is just ability to manage documents? And document sets gives you this kind of flexibility where you need a little bit more than Office 365 groups, but you really don't need all the bells and whistles of a team site. Maybe you're really only managing documents, but you really need to kind of organize them in a great manner. So for that option, the second option you can use to manage projects is document sets. Document set is actually a special type of content type in SharePoint, but think about this. Let me explain it to you in simple terms. A document set is essentially folder combined with metadata. So let me show you what it looks like, and then I'll explain some specifics of how it could be beneficial to you in terms of project management. So what I have here is a single document library, and I have this different projects on here. Now, you don't get the typical yellow folder that you get if you were to store your documents in folders, but they have this little, kind of this different looking icon. But behind the scenes, all of this are yellow folders. So for each project, I have a different folder in place. And let me click on one of them and just show you the kind of the user experience of what you get. So obviously, you're probably familiar with what you get if you click on a regular folder. You get to see a bunch of files underneath. Here, when I clicked on that folder or document set, I get this. And essentially, it's almost like a mini page, mini site, even though behind the scenes, all it is just a folder. But it's folder dressed up with metadata. So for example, if I have all my different projects, let me come back to the screen. If I have all these different projects, essentially I will be creating a new folder for each project. And all of this metadata is configurable. The beauty is that, yes, you can apply metadata here at the project level. And once again, let me just fill in a few fields, whatever it is. So, and you get to fill, and obviously all of this metadata could be customized, but let's not go crazy here because of the time constraints. And you can specify, now what I'm doing here, I'm setting up a new project, and I'm specifying metadata at the project level or at the folder level. So let me hit save. And here we go. What I ended up with is pretty much a dedicated, not a team site, but it's almost like a mini page for my project. And obviously this right here, this header right here contains all the metadata that I have at the project level. And this is the area where I would manage my documents. So let me go back to an existing project that the one that I already configured and filled all the metadata. So this is the project that I set up a while ago. And once again, I have my mini site with my metadata at the folder level. And here I have my metadata at the document level. So let me, for example, go ahead and upload a document into this folder for this particular project. So let me upload a project budget, hit OK, and look what will happen. We get this menu, and I'm being prompted to enter a document type. Obviously, it wants to know this is something I can configure. Let's say this is a budget. But look at this. All of this metadata is not metadata that is related to the file. This is metadata that got carried over from the project. So automatically, I don't need to tag my file to any other pieces of metadata because this has been already set up before previously at the folder level, at the project level. So the beauty is that any file, long story short, that any file that you upload into this document set, into this folder, inherits metadata from the project, from the folder level. So once I hit save, this file is now uploaded to my repository, and it inherits all the metadata from my project. Now, this is extremely powerful from the project management perspective, and let me explain what I mean by that. So, as I will demonstrate to you in a few minutes, obviously, if you utilize Office 365 or you utilize team sites to manage your content, then whenever you need to roll up content from multiple sites, let's say you want to roll up all documents, certain documents, project charters from all the different sites, rolling up documents from team sites is not something that is easy to do. It is possible, you need to write queries, but it's not something an end user or even a typical site owner power user can do. You really need to understand an architecture, you need to write a query, you need to know what you're doing. Document sets, because remember what I mentioned in the beginning, with document sets, I have a single library. It's not multiple sites, it's not multiple groups, it's a single library with essentially folders underneath. So this gives me ability not only to search for a particular project, but also to search for documents across my multiple folders. based on metadata, either project-related metadata or document-related metadata. So let me demonstrate to you. Oh, I guess I get some notifications, emails from the groups I have. We have joined. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So let me demonstrate how to search across multiple projects for particular documents. Let's say I want to search for all the project charters across all of my projects. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I need to be in a different view. So I'm searching for documents now, not projects. And I'm searching for project charters. And I'm searching, this is the document type metadata. And I'm also searching for project charters that are managed by a certain project manager. This is my project level metadata. Okay? And then I hit apply. And look at this. It found me all the documents that are tagged as project charter, and it pretty much surfaced it up. Definitely, obviously I did some configuration with views and metadata search, but it was day and night comparing to the queries you would need to write if you were to aggregate that content from from multiple sites. Now, let's talk about the scenarios where you would use this method over other methods. Now, obviously, if you need to manage more than just documents, if you need to manage calendars and tasks, maybe you need to consider using the SharePoint team sites. However, I do find, for example, in my case, I do find certain organizations, typically like engineering organizations, that do a lot of the small projects. They don't need all the bells and whistles to manage tasks and other aspects. So they don't need to kind of do resource management or any other fancy stuff. All they need to do is just they do this mini projects. They need to manage documents, and this gives you document sets gives you such ability in relatively kind of easy setup. All right. So before we leave this topic, okay, I guess I had someone complain about audio quality. If you do have audio quality issues, I recommend that you join via the phone and not through the computer. Usually that kind of solves the problem. So once again, document sets is all about managing documents. What you see is what you get. You can't really manage other types of content like tasks or contacts or anything else that you have on a team site, but because everything is managed, because everything resides in a single site, in a single document library, it gives you the flexibility to search content across multiple folders among multiple projects. It also gives you this nice look, and the minute you set up a new project, you have this almost like a dashboard of all the different projects that you can sort and filter based on certain criteria. So if I want to see all of my projects that are in execution phase, for example, it's as easy as just picking a filter and searching for it and navigating through. And just like with team sites, you can assign, because at the end of the day, behind the scenes, this is a folder. You can assign different permissions to different folders, so you can kind of manage security for each individual folder if you wish. Something obviously the luxury you have with your team sites as well. All right, which brings us to the topic of team sites now. And this has been kind of the staple of SharePoint for a while. I mean, this has been, I think, team sites have been in SharePoint kind of forever. And team sites are essentially dedicated sites to manage your project. And if you need to manage more than documents, if you need to manage other aspects of the project like tasks, especially if you need to synchronize it with MS Project, you need to manage other types of content like calendar and risk register, etc. Team sites is definitely the way to go. As I mentioned earlier, it will be married up with Office 365 groups hopefully soon, towards the end of the year or so. So definitely this will also get all the social media kind of capabilities of Office 365 groups. But for now, I mean, what you see is what you get in terms of functionality. Now, obviously, the team sites is takes some time to kind of figure out what the default project site template will look like, and it's obviously unique depending on your particular needs. I try to kind of, my template probably includes a little bit too much, but I just try to show you all the different components and web parts that you would typically manage as part of the project. So obviously a document library. You need to manage documents. And in case if you're using folders to organize documents, that's fine, but I strongly also suggest that you consider metadata to manage your documents. Why? Because if you manage projects, if you think about from project management perspective, every project is kind of consistent. You always have the same repeating documents, test documents, agenda, meeting minutes, budgets, SOWs, whatever it is. So it's very easy to organize those documents using metadata. If I were to join your organization and I'm joining 5 different projects, I don't want to 5 different ways to organize information on my team site. I want kind of a uniform look and feel for my team site. I want a uniform look and feel as far as information or files are organized in terms of metadata. So definitely metadata makes sense for project templates especially. The second, obviously, if we're talking about managing projects, tasks is definitely something, or schedules is definitely something you will probably manage. Now, this got the task model, the tasks web part got improved quite considerably from previous versions. You now, first of all, get this nice looking timeline where you could add individual tasks to it. You also can indent tasks just like an MS Project. You can also synchronize your existing MS Project file with your SharePoint task list, so definitely very powerful. Or if you, for example, started working on a task list in your project, and then you maybe, what I had my team members kind of create all the basic tasks, but I'm a PM, I want to manage this task in MS Project, I can do so. Obviously, you need to have a licensed version of MS Project installed on your machine, which I do. And here we go. I am opening this exact task list in MS Project, and I can manage my schedule. If I'm kind of a more sophisticated project manager, I can manage my schedule through MS Project, but I can also give my users ability to manage their own individual tasks. So definitely extremely, extremely powerful. Let's talk about other aspects of the project. So definitely a team calendar, right? You can manage your team meetings. You can manage your milestones, etc. You can also synchronize. I mean, right now there is no kind of easy way. Remember, in Office 365 groups, I could view a calendar. I could overlay it easily with other group calendars or personal calendar. Here, what you can do is synchronize it to your Outlook and overlay your calendar that way. But for now, you can't really easily overlay your team site calendars with one another. Team contacts, I'm sure you want to manage your team contacts and contact information, so there is a web part for that. And I even maintain, this is not an existing web part, this is kind of a custom list that I created, but if you, in case if you're managing risks, you can continue doing so maybe in Excel or whatever you use, but you can also build a SharePoint list and essentially build all the columns so people can go in and fill out the form and fill out all the, once again, all of this is just metadata that I created, all the columns I created, and you can fill in the risks, and this way you will have the list available. By the way, any list, whether it's a calendar, a task list, or whatever custom list, you can export it to Excel in case if you are more comfortable working in Excel. What else? Discussion board. So that's kind of as far as the social media. Remember, in Office 365 groups, we had this conversation. Here you have this. You can add a discussion board. This is an existing web part, and you can have kind of threaded discussions that people can, they can create new discussions. They can participate in kind of any conversation. So it's not really tied into your email as conversation is in Office 365, but once again, I think we'll definitely see a lot of changes, come end of the year. Now, the idea is of the SharePoint team site is that you create the look and feel for your organization, and every organization is unique. And what you do then is create a template out of it. So that's kind of the big idea behind the team sites. You create a template out of this team site, and the idea is that every project, whenever the new project is requested, you pretty much base it on the same template. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. You pretty much create a new project based on the template. And this way, it's a great way to standardize, bring standards into your organization. Every team site will look the same. Every library will look the same in terms of how it's organized. Another beautiful aspect is that you can obviously set different security and customize security, and you can really do wonders in terms of security, right? You can specify security for the whole site, which is the best practice, or you can start breaking permissions, depending on the module you need to access. So definitely, team site is something that has been around for a while. Lots of organizations, are using team sites to manage projects, and I think it will only benefit. I think we'll definitely see lots of improvements once we see a team site being married with Office 365 groups. Question from Robert, will there be a video recording? Yes, Robert, there will be a video recording of this webinar. I'll post it to my YouTube channel, and for those of you who are subscribed to my newsletter, I will also send an email about it. Another question from Rachel. This was on the document sets. How do I get the left search bar you had with the document sets? Let me show you, Rachel, how to do that. Well, actually, I will not be able to show you how to do that, but I'll explain how you can get to the instructions. So let me get back to my document set. That was a great question. All right, so Rachel, I think you're talking about this right here. So this is called metadata navigation in SharePoint. So essentially, once you configure your metadata, there is a feature, there is a couple of settings you need to turn on this left-hand side panel. Now, if you go to my website, and I have written a blog, it's called Metadata Navigation, how to search in a library using metadata navigation. So, or if you Google metadata navigation SharePoint Maven, it should come up. So I have written step-by-step instructions, Rachel, on how to set this up, and this is definitely powerful. I actually call this kind of Amazon-style search, where you can specify the filters and search for your metadata. You can either search it through this, top headers, right? But I think it's definitely much cooler to search it through this left-hand side navigation. So once again, if you Google metadata navigation SharePoint, you should see my blog post or blog posts written by others, and they should be able to explain you, how to do this. Great question. All right, so coming back to the team sites. Now let's talk about, so we just talked about the third option, which was the team sites. Now let's talk about you typically hear a requirement as far as, well, how do we roll this information up together, from multiple sites? Now, here's the deal. So the truth of the matter is, when you need to roll up, I've shown you how to roll up content in a document library. That was kind of given because everything was in a single library. With team sites, we have a challenge. With team sites, everything resides, all the content resides in multiple sites. So there is really no easy out-of-the-box way to roll up content. So let me show you what I typically do, for clients who are utilizing SharePoint team sites, and that's kind of going to be your decision on how to proceed and what to implement in your particular case. So let's pretend we have created our magic team site. We created a template out of it, and now we created 25 projects based on the template. What I usually do, and what I usually recommend clients to do, is you can build another site, just like this one, and you obviously need a way to link to all of those different projects you have created. So usually the easiest way to do this would be to create pretty much a regular list, a custom list in SharePoint. So think about this as almost like an Excel list, a dashboard, which will give you information about the project, and you can dress it up with metadata as you wish. And most importantly, for each row, for each project, you will have a link that will help you link to that particular team site. So this dashboard is not really a roll-up of information from multiple. It doesn't really aggregate information from multiple sites, but this is almost like, it's a single kind of dashboard that shows you all the different projects happening in your organization. So here is kind of another view of the same dashboard. So here is my dashboard. I have all the projects, and anytime I create a new site, I have to add it to the dashboard and specify the link, and I'm done. But this gives you kind of a cheap and very inexpensive way to access all of the project team sites and have one central place to access those the project team sites. Now, it doesn't, as I mentioned, it doesn't really aggregate any information from all the team sites. You can also aggregate information if you wish. However, this is really definitely a much more advanced kind of topic. And so here is an example of me aggregating information, in this case documents from all of my different project team sites. So as you can see, I see all the different files, and I can filter based on different metadata. For example, I want to find all the different project charters from all the different project team sites that I have, and apparently I only have one. But the thing with this is, behind the scenes, this is not something that is available to you out of the box. Behind the scenes, if I were to show you this, briefly, I'm using out-of-the-box web parts, but I had to write a query. Oh, what happened here? I have to write a query. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's cancel this for now before I lose it. Behind the scenes, I had to write a query where I specify, let me do it again. So here we go. Here we go. So this is a web part that allows me to surface up the information, but behind the scenes, I have written a query that aggregates information from multiple sites. So this is, once again, I'm not going to go into specifics of this query, but behind the scenes, this is what I had to do. Now, this still relies on kind of the information architecture and metadata you put in place, but I think you will agree with me, this is not something a typical end user will be able to do, or even a typical site owner will be able to do. And this queries are kind of fixed. If you want to modify it, you kind of most likely will need to reach out to your IT department to modify your query. So it's definitely not a very easy kind of thing to do if you want to aggregate the content from multiple sites. The functionality is there if you need to roll it up, but you know what? In most cases, I will be honest, in most cases, you really need, most of my clients at least, they really don't need, they don't require this additional functionality to roll up content. You just drill down to the project you need to go through the dashboard, and then you can do your targeted search in that particular site or in this particular document library. So it's very rare when you would actually go and and have a strong kind of requirement to aggregate information from multiple sites. All right. A question from Judy: can you add a search bar on your website? Well, you really don't need to add anything, Judy, because the search bar is already there. You can search for information multiple ways. You can search, obviously, if you use this search window, it searches for anywhere on your site or sub-site. And if you know where your content resides, like if I am looking for documents, I will just go to my document library and search for information in this particular library. This will give me kind of more precise, targeted search results. And by the way, this little search window is available anywhere. So if I go to my task list, I have a little search window in here. So if I'm searching for something that contains this, keyword, it will find me the tasks in this case related to this particular keyword. So yeah, you really don't need to. Okay. All right. So with that being said, so let me come back to my presentation. So as I mentioned, I do for each, as I mentioned in the beginning, for every option that we just went over, I do specify, the particular kind of scenarios where this option would make sense. But really, at the end of the day, I think you should give each option a try and just see what works for your organization. So in some cases, if you need something informal, Office 365 groups is the way to go. In some cases, document sets is the way to go. I personally find lots of engineering, kind of companies using document sets capabilities because they need to store documents, they want to rely on metadata, they need to store maybe CAT documents, but at the same time they want to manage, they want to have a flexibility and power of metadata. And maybe team sites, if you are kind of more sophisticated, project manager, if you have certain methodology that you follow in your organization, definitely team sites is kind of the Cadillac of project, of SharePoint in terms of project management. You kind of get to, it's quite flexible in terms of customization, and you can really do wonders with configuration and customization, and as far as, and also management of content. All right, so let's see. So we covered the project team sites. Definitely, I showed you how briefly how to save it as a template, but the big idea about the team sites, and by the way, you can do the same with document sets as well. You can save both as kind of the template. So anytime you need to start off with a template, you can easily do that. Another great power about saving, another great benefit of using sites as templates. Let's say, from project management standpoint, let's say in your organization, you want everyone to start off with the same version of project charter. You want everyone to start off with the same version, maybe file for budget or proposal or agenda, meeting minutes, whatever it is. What you can do is, once you have your site, team site, you upload the documents, the templates you want everyone to use, and then you go to site settings, save this site as a template, name it whatever, but you also hit this checkbox, include content. What it will do, it will not only save the look and feel of the site, but it will also save any documents that are built into the site you are converting into the template. So that means that next time you provision a new site for me, I will not only get the site itself, but as a starting point, I will get all my initial documents I need to have in place, like budgets or maybe SOW, whatever the templates are. Okay. All right. So I have actually, related to project management, I have written, in case if you're wondering how to build this project site, a team site from scratch, I have written step-by-step instructions, and literally step-by-step. So if you've never used SharePoint, if you follow my instructions, you should end up with something that I showed you today. I have written a step-by-step instructions a while ago on how to create a project team site, and this is a link to my blog, to this particular topic. So definitely feel free to check it out. And this table right here shows you the typical kind of PM artifacts as well as the corresponding web part. So for example, if you need to manage tasks and schedule, there is a corresponding web part for you to do that. If you need to manage issues, believe it or not, there is an issues log that Microsoft is providing to you out of the box. You can obviously customize it with your metadata, but this will give you some idea if you want to manage different types of content for your projects, what to use as far as the web parts when you create your magic team site. So I have spoken about this as far as data aggregation and rollup. Once again, I don't get too fixed to, as far as how to aggregate content. I think I would definitely put much effort into customizing the team site and making sure you come up with nice clean look and feel. Yes, it might be beneficial in some cases to roll up information. I'm not saying it's wrong, but as I have demonstrated to you, this is definitely not a quick project to implement. You definitely need to do some custom searches, etc. And in case if you need to do that, I have provided you with a web part that will allow you to do that. It's a content search web part or search results web part. depending on the Office 365 plan that you have. All right, before we wrap up and go to Q&A, another thing I want to mention is, in addition to webinars, I also run free SharePoint training, and there is no catch. It's absolutely free. You can go to my website, just follow the link on the slide deck, and I offer both beginner as well as site owner training sessions. They're both live sessions, 2-hour sessions, and I offer them every single month. Now, there is a session tomorrow. I had a beginner training session yesterday. There is a site owner training session tomorrow. I know it's full, but there is still some space left for August. And, you know, I already have calendar, I think, all the way up to September, October. So definitely feel free to check it out and register. In addition to this webinar, these are other webinars that I offer, and some of them I already have posted video from kind of, you know, video recording from previous sessions. So you definitely feel free to check out my YouTube channel. And as I mentioned, the recording from this webinar will be posted on my YouTube channel as well. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is kind of a new webinar dedicated to project and portfolio management. So definitely, if you want to learn about kind of even a much more sophisticated way to manage projects and being able to manage resources, capacity, kind of manage projects at the portfolio level, definitely register for that August webinar. I think it's on August 10th. All right, and here is my contact information. Feel free to follow me on social media, send me an email if you have any questions. And at this point, I think we have a few minutes left. I would like to see if there are any last-minute questions. All right, I think we have about 2 or 3 minutes left. Folks, any questions on any of the topics we covered today? Office 365 groups, team sites, document sets, politics, anything? All right, so I don't think I see any questions. I'll hang around for another minute or two. I definitely got some good questions during the session. All right. Okay, I guess a couple of people thanking me. I appreciate everyone's attendance for sure. Yeah, appreciate. Looks like everyone enjoyed it. That's great to hear. And by the way, folks, I mean, I'm always looking to improve my session. So if there is anything that maybe I didn't cover, if you want me to improve my sessions going forward, I would like to hear from you. So please send me an email and you know, let me know how I can do better. All right. Question from Rachel: can I change the placement of on the page? Rachel, I'm not sure what you're talking about, the navigation bar. Would you mind rephrasing that? Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate your comments. And Tatiana? So yeah, Rachel, if you don't mind maybe rephrasing your question, or feel free to send me an email so I can clarify for you. Thank you, Kim. Looking forward. Okay. Oh, Rachel, I think the question you're asking if you can move this navigation up. No, you cannot. I think what ends up happening is that in your case, the reason why navigation is all the way at the bottom of the screen is because it's automatically added underneath your quick launch. So if you have a long, like you see here, it's pretty much on the top because I only have few entries in my quick launch on the left. In your case, I assume what's happening is you have maybe 10, 15 or whatever it is enters here, and unfortunately there is no way to move it. What you see is what you get, so you cannot rearrange it. So I would definitely recommend that you maybe trim your quick launch a little bit. Okay. All right, folks. We're right at the top of the hour, and this is a project management webinar, so we need to be all on time. So thank you very much for attendance. I really appreciate all the great questions. Hopefully you found this informative, and looking forward to having you in my future webinars or training sessions. Have a great day and have a great weekend. Goodbye.